Let's go straight now to our next guest to talk about what's been happening in the American election, the implications of that for Donald Trump and the various different prosecutions he is facing. This after a Supreme Court decision yesterday that basically gave presidential immunity to Donald Trump and any past or future president. Well, you can't really be taken to court, prosecuted for anything that you've done as an official act while in office. Joe Biden says this is a dangerous precedent and says, we don't have kings in this country. No one's above the law. But let's talk about this with Steve Gill. He's a former advisor both to Clinton and the Bush administrations and joins us now. Good morning to you, Steve.
Hey, Julie, if anybody's questioning whether we're in the crazy season of politics, our two guys are debating who has the better golf game, and you guys are debating letting trans women use women's toilets.
Yeah.
We should solve ours by letting them have their next debate on a driving range. and my suggestion to you guys is a trans woman can use the women's toilet, but if he fails to put the toilet seat down, it's a 5-year sentence.
I like that. I like that. No, the word is when they have it down and then they pee on it anyway. But there we are. Now, Steve, do us a favour, because the machinations of the law courts in America are pretty complicated for us. Tell us exactly what the Supreme Court has actually ruled.
Well, actually, the Supreme Court ruled 40 years ago that presidents have immunity from criminal activities in their official duties. The Supreme Court has clarified it and really spanked the prosecutor and the lower court judge for not going through the level of determining whether there were official acts or unofficial acts that Trump is being charged with. And again, the hysteria over this idea that Sonia Sotomayor and some of the lower court debated.
She's one of the Supreme Court judges.
Yes, she was one of the dissenters who I don't think Joe Biden has read this opinion. I'm a lawyer. I've read the opinion. I don't think Sonia Sotomayor or the other dissenters read it, because a lot of what they're concerned about is addressed in the opinion written by the Chief Justice.
The key thing is, you're saying
Joe Biden.
So can we, I just want to start. Can we go back to basics? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So Supreme Court basic. You're saying, look, that's my things. I've always thought, well, of course, you have immunity from prosecution as president for your official acts. They clarified that yes, that is the case. Of course, that relates to whether or not he will actually face prosecution and could face prosecution over the January 6th riots in 2021. What his role was in that, but also with trying to overturn the results of the election from November 2020, and he's got 3 different charges cases that are coming up, not until after the November election. So either way, when he's president, if he wins in November, he can just basically close down those charges anyway. He'd be in charge of the Department of Justice, and those cases won't go ahead while he's president, certainly. But this is the thing. The key differentiation, surely, is whether he's done something in an official capacity or as an unofficial capacity. So we use an example. If he shoplifted, well, that's not part of his official duties as a president, so should he be able to be charged with that? And I suppose the argument would be, well, not while he's president, perhaps, but everyone seems to talk about this as like, this has never happened before, we've never had this issue before. But you have. I mean, Richard Nixon committed egregious crimes in office, which were not a requirement of his official duties, the Watergate affair, but the decision was taken by his successor, to pardon him. So the reason why someone's not been prosecuted is the decision is always to pardon.
Well, and clearly, while you're president, you can be impeached. There are ways to deal with alleged crimes, high crimes and misdemeanors. What this case really does is clarify that you have to determine is something within the parameters, the umbrella of official duty, and that's going to be pretty broad, and that there is a presumption that if you're acting in an official matter that you have immunity, but if you're outside that boundary, you don't. I've used the example that this whole SEAL Team 6 assassination claim that some are hysterically saying is an example that Trump can go kill people, Biden can kill Trump. If President Trump issues as a president a kill order on somebody in New York City who has a nuclear weapon and threatening to explode it, he can send SEAL Teams and kill him. Yeah. If somebody pinches Melania's rear end at a function, he can't send SEAL Team 6 to execute them. It's really pretty bright line law.
Yeah, and that's it, and it's really rather obvious. And otherwise, I could imagine a scenario where a sitting president would just be non-stop court cases and unable to do their job, being sued constantly all the time. But again, this is the thing. I mean,
or we have to pause because of the threat of that anything they did, they're having to assess, can I be sued over this? Can I be prosecuted? You can't freeze the presidency under the threat, and we're seeing that under this administration when you go after a former president.
Here's the thing. When you look at, say, January 6th riots now on the Capitol Hill, now, I think there's a very big question about whether or not he actually incited people to go and commit violence, but certainly his failure to deal with it when it was happening, when he was being pleaded with by his own advisors and even his own children to go public and appeal for calm to stop it. And people did die, and people were genuinely in fear of their lives at the Capitol on that day. But also actions since to try and overturn the election results. I think firstly, those cases are bang to rights and are outrageous. But the point is, these cases are only coming to court now because he's running for president. They are political decisions. They didn't decide to prosecute after he left office because they thought, well, he's done and dusted. So there was already a kind of decision, which is we just won't go after him now. So there is a political decision to prosecute him now because he's running for office again. But they should have perhaps prosecuted him back in 2021, shouldn't they?
Well, and it's interesting, the Supreme Court in this opinion makes the point that the trial judge and the prosecutor were in this rush to get to a trial before November. The Supreme Court basically said, we don't have a timeline of politics here. You should have done your job then and decided, were these official duties or unofficial duties, and really quite literally spanked the lower court and the prosecutor, and they're sending it back for them to make that determination, which won't happen before November.
How much of this decision do you think is as a result of the court being packed with conservative, Republican-appointed judges? We've got 6-3. It's often been, like maybe one in balance. But because Donald Trump got to appoint 3 judges, it's massively moved in the Conservative favour. And that was basically why the Christian evangelicals appointed him. They wanted these rulings on things like abortion and guns and things like that. The court has always been political in that sense. They're political appointees appointed by presidents who like their views on the judiciary. Is that now going to be an issue, though? Is that the court, and we've got a lot of young members of the court as well, there for life, that actually the court can no longer be seen as a final neutral arbiter of the political fray in America?
I think this particular opinion is outside of politics. Lawyers on both sides of the ideological divide agree this is what the likely result was going to be. I've been saying it for weeks. What is different is that you've got Joe Biden politicizing the Supreme Court. They trotted him out for a 4-minute diatribe, a tantrum about this decision. He used a teleprompter for 4 minutes, read a prepared speech. He looked like he'd just done a faceplant in Cheetos, his orange face, trying to, I guess, look like Donald Trump. Didn't answer any questions and made statements that were ridiculous. He claimed, I'm supporting the law, I have respect for the law. This is the guy who has bragged about ignoring a Supreme Court opinion that said you can't do away with student loans without going through the legislative process. Right. And after that opinion, he's done it again. He completely flaunts the law all the time while riding his high horse. OK, really interesting to talk to you about that. Thank you so much for joining us. Steve Gill there from advisor to Clinton and Bush administrations.